last I checked correctly, the date was right. So I know this is a very busy and confusing time. I've talked with several of you on the phone call in the past few days, and it seems like we're drinking from a fire hose with the amount of information that's coming at us. So we wanted to take this time to get everyone together and have an informational session here. So we're getting a lot of calls, questions, so we just want to focus on some of the most important items today. So this is an informational call, so we won't be taking questions live through this call. You may submit your questions through the chat feature. If you look at the upper right-hand corner of your screen, there is what appears to be a comment type icon. That is the chat feature. So you can go there, you can put your question in the chat feature, and at the bottom of that pane, right now it defaults to everyone. So if you have a general question that you think is okay for everyone to see, you can keep that default there. You can also select the drop-down arrows in that box that says everyone, and select organizer only, so that you can submit your questions only to the organizer, so only Michael, Canita, and I will see that. So also wanted to introduce our speakers today. So I'm Allison Harrell. I'm one of the shareholders here with Thomas L. Ferguson, and then also presenting today is Michael Kalifeh and Canita Peterson, who are also two other shareholders with our firm. So we will be tracking those questions, and we will get back to you with answers as soon as we can. If there's repeat questions that come in, we will gather those and issue those in a frequently asked question document so that we're not answering those individually. But again, if you have very specific questions, please put those in the chat feature. And if you would not like those to be seen by everyone, please hit the organizer only from that drop-down menu in the chat pane. So I'm going to turn it over to Michael first so that he can take the first dive into the Paycheck Protection Program, which is definitely the area we've been getting the most amount of questions on lately.
Thanks, Allison. So the Paycheck Protection Program is a particular program that was included in the CARES Act, which was enacted into law almost a week ago, exactly a week ago tomorrow. So it was an 800-plus page bill. Included in that 800-plus pages was the Paycheck Protection Program, which we're referring to as the PPP. The amount of questions, concerns, confusion that has resulted from the series of information that's come through that bill, and particularly the PPP, it's inundated us, it's inundated the banks, it's inundated a lot of other professionals that are dealing with that particular provision. What we wanted to do today was to highlight a series of things that you need to know now, should you think it makes the most sense for you and your business to pursue an application with the PPP loan program. Most important thing I can share with you is that for small businesses, which is for purposes of the CARES Act, is defined as less than 500 employees for the PPP program. And then also for sole proprietors, you can first start making loan applications under the PPP program starting tomorrow, April 3rd. I would encourage anyone who has not familiarized themselves with that program to do so. They are obviously welcome to reach out to us as a resource, but also their legal counsel or their banker to help work through that to see if it makes sense for them as a business. The PPP program is intended to get dollars out to businesses fast in order to allow them to continue to make payroll, pay rent, pay their utility bills, and a couple other specified expenses with those loan dollars. The PPP loan itself is being administered through the banking system. The SBA is providing the dollars from the federal government to the banks, and the loan applications are made directly with your banking institution. Therefore, you need to get with your banks to get the loan application to be able to complete that process and get your loan in the queue if you want to pursue a PPP loan. The PPP loan is intended to be, is expected to be very highly sought after. No one knows at this stage how the funding exactly will roll out, how the loan applications will be prioritized. So we're asking our clients that we work with to stay very close to their bankers, to be able to work through that process, to put them in the best chance possible to be able to get a loan through that program, if that makes sense. In anticipation of making a loan under that program, one of the things that you need to be working on as an organization is aggregating your wage data. The PPP loan itself, the maximum amount of the loan that you can apply for is based upon your payroll. It's based upon, for most businesses, your calendar year 2019 payroll. So your W-2s, your 941 forms will be great sources of information to be able to make that calculation, that computation. If you familiarize yourself with that program already, you've seen this. If you haven't, the loan is essentially, the maximum loan is the lesser of $10 million or 2.5 times your monthly average payroll costs. And there's a specific definition of that in the guidance provided with the loan application. And it's for most businesses, again, it's for calendar year 2019. The most popular aspect of that program by far is not the loan itself, but the ability to have a substantial amount of that loan forgiven on a tax-free basis if you meet certain criteria. That criteria is maintaining your headcount and your payroll and not reducing your wages beyond 25% over the succeeding 8 weeks from which the loan originates. So if you meet those criteria, the loan effectively converts to a grant and you are not required to pay that back. Any amounts of that loan that do not get forgiven or moved to grant status have to be paid back over a 2-year period of time at a 0.5% interest rate. And it's interesting to note that when the law was rolled out last Friday, the payback provisions were over a 10-year period at 4% interest rate. And the guidance released as of this past Tuesday by the Treasury Department to the SBA was at 0.5% paid back over a 2-year period of time. Probably in closing, what I would say is that everyone is focused from a business standpoint on the fact that the loan can be forgiven. But I think it's extremely important that everyone be aware that as a business, this is a loan. You are taking out a loan. It is not a grant immediately up front. There are key requirements that you will have to maintain in order to achieve forgiveness status. You will actually apply back to the bank with documentation to be able to substantiate the amount of the loan that you're requesting to be forgiven. And so, again, I would encourage you to work with your financial professionals to be able to put yourselves in the best position possible to be able to document the forgiveness component, because there are some best practices in that area that you can institute now as you're leading up to the loan process to be able.
Michael, hold on. We've lost your audio.
Allison, do you want to pick up where Michael was speaking? Yeah, sorry, there is some technical lag there from Michael's last points, but I wanted to touch on, I've reached out to a lot of you that 501, the only organizations that are eligible as far as nonprofits go for the PPP are 501c3 and 501c19 organizations at this time. So all other 501c organizations are not eligible for the payroll protection program or paycheck protection program. So, there are some other avenues that are available to other 501c organizations, but just wanted to make sure that that was clear out there, because it did say small business, which some not-for-profits are included in small businesses, but at this time it's only 501c3 and C19 organizations. So I wanted to touch on a couple of things, because right now we're also being asked for a number of contributions from different organizations. So part of the CARES Act also included a $300 above the line charitable contribution for filers that take the standard deduction. So this does not include non-cash gifts or gifts from donor advised funds, but those are for cash contributions. So cash contributions, you do have a new above the line deduction there. Also, charitable contributions for itemizers were also expanded. So the usual limit for 2020 would have been 50 or 60% for cash, and that was expanded to 100%. It also increased the existing cap for corporate donors on cash and food donations. So I just wanted to make everybody aware of that, as we're getting asked for different donations from different organizations now during this critical time, that there is some tax benefit in there for you for 2020. So I also wanted to talk about some of the statewide associations and reaching out to your members with this information. We've referenced that we do have a COVID-19 part of our website. Please feel free to direct your members to that section of our website. It has a lot of valuable information there, along with the SBA application, as well as a calculator for the PPP program. So definitely advise them to go out there and look at that. And please feel free to share any of the information that we're sending to you via email as well. And, so some of the state agencies that are working with not-for-profits with pass-through dollars, we'll be working with the state agencies directly on how to get some of this messaging out, especially when it comes to the PPP program and other aid that is available. So we will be working with state agencies directly to disseminate that information to some of the not-for-profit members statewide. So that's just a couple of points that I wanted to hit on as far as who was eligible in the 501c world, and then also importance of those charitable contributions and how those deductions changed for the 2020 year.
Thanks, Allison. Canita, you want to unmute and jump in here? I know that you have some important touch points as well.
Certainly. Regarding the urgency and what you need to know now, it's what Michael covered earlier. That's very time sensitive, but the thing that I'm going to talk about is some of the other questions that we've gotten in areas other than the PPP. First, highlighting a few of the income tax changes. A significant one is the change in net operating losses. There's still a lot of questions that we have related to implementation, but what we do know is that for NOLs arising in tax years beginning before 2021, the CARES Act allows you to carry back 100% of NOLs to the prior 5 years. The Act also temporarily liberalizes the treatment of these NOL carry forwards for tax years beginning before 2021. So you can take the NOL deduction equal to 100% of taxable income. You'll recall that the recent tax changes limited the NOL to 80% of taxable income, and that a lot of companies out there were eliminated from being the ability to go back, carry back. So this basically reverses these elements and then adds a new benefit of 5 years. For those of you on the call that are still dealing with A&T, the CARES Act allows corporations to go ahead and claim 100% of the A&T credits. So that's great news. And for those of you that saw the last couple of years that you were being limited in your deductibility of interest, there's an increase now in the interest limitation to 50% of adjusted taxable income for 2019 and 2020. If you'll recall, before it was, now it's currently limited to 30%. The other change that we've been waiting for quite a while is the CARES Act also made a technical correction to the 2017 tax law that retroactively treats various building improvements, including your leasehold improvements, your restaurant improvements, retail improvements, they're going to be immediately deductible. If you got caught up in having to capitalize some of these improvements because of the error in the tax law, then this will be a nice deduction for you this year. And I know a couple of you out there, it'll be a nice size one. There's also, switching to payroll taxes really quick, for all entities, you may be able to defer paying the employer portion of certain payroll taxes through the end of 2020, with all of the 2020 deferred amounts due in equal parts, one at the end of 2021 and the other at the end of 2022. You can defer the 6.2% employer portion of the Social Security payroll tax. But it's really important to note that this is not going to be available if you take advantage of the debt forgiveness under the programs that Michael was talking about earlier. Switching gears a little bit to retirement plans. The CARES Act also made changes that impact these plans, and you're going to want to know if you're a plan sponsor. Your participants are probably going to be asking you about it. First, there's a whole new distribution category that you can add to existing plans. You can permit in-service COVID-19 related distributions from a participant's vested account balance without regard to your normal withdrawal restrictions. Now, this will need to be done during the calendar year 2020, and it has to be to an eligible individual. This is going to end up probably being pretty broad, but the way they have it defined now is if you have an individual participant that has been diagnosed with COVID-19, has a spouse or dependent that's been diagnosed, or, and this is kind of a little bit of a catch-all, has experienced adverse financial consequences. And so they've defined this pretty broadly. If you're a result of a quarantine, a furlough, a layoff, reduction of work hours, business closure, even if you had lack of childcare. So there's a lot of factors that are going to allow this new distribution category, given just our current situation. And another good part about this is, as of the plan administrator, you can rely on your participants' certification of the above eligibility. So there's nothing that you have to do to prove that. So what are these distributions going to look like? They're going to be limited to $100,000. They will not be subject to the 20% mandatory withholding, and they'll be exempt from the 10% early withdrawal penalty that is generally applied for participants that are 59 and a half. Also, if a participant wants a loan, these limits have been temporarily increased to the lesser of $100,000 or 100% of the participant's vested balance. And this is only going to apply to loans made on or before September 23rd, 2020. And it's for the same group of eligible participants that we talked about earlier with regards to distributions. You can also modify your plan to allow currently scheduled participant loan prepayment. So, a lot of the participants are having monthly loan amounts taken out of their paycheck. So if those are scheduled to be repaid from March 27th, 2020 to December 31st, 2020, you can allow these to be delayed for up to 1 year. Now, interest will continue to accrue, so they need to make sure they know that. If your plan does not currently have a loan option, then you will need to amend your plan to allow this. Switching to R&Ds, required minimum distributions, some of the elements have changed. Participants that turned 70 and a half prior to 2019 will not be required to receive an ongoing R&D for 2020. Participants who turned 70 and a half in 19 and who have not received their first R&D for 19, you will not have to receive your 19 or your 2020. And the beneficiaries receiving those are also, their distribution timeline rolls up underneath that. And so if a 2020 RMD has already been issued, you can roll that over into an IRA or an employer plan and not pay tax on that. One of the other great things related to some of these retirement plan changes is they are allowing these benefits to be adopted immediately and then amend your plan later on down the road. I know a lot of this information we've gone over quickly. There's a lot of numbers in there. There's a lot of facts. Please know we're going to continue to send out information related to the tax changes, the retirement plan changes, and then we're also going to post information on your website. So if you missed some of those, certainly reach out to us specifically, but we're also going to try to disseminate that information as quickly as possible. So I see that, Becca, I guess I'll throw it to you. I see Michael's back. I don't know if he had finished everything he had wanted to mention.
Michael, I want to make sure that you're unmuted and just a little wrap up from you in there.
Yeah, thank you, and thanks, Canita. First and foremost, thank everyone for joining us, taking the time out to learn a little bit more about all the information that we shared. We are continuously following the different authoritative resources to be able to stay current on the various changes to the law that has been passed and the regulations that are being issued that implement those laws. It seems as if that as the dates get closer to implementations, for example, such as the PPP loan, that the SBA and the government's working hard to be able to implement this, and changes are being made. So I would encourage you to stay in touch with your financial advisors, your professionals you work with, as well as your bankers, to make sure that you have the most current information. We have, I think that I was told that part of what I was relaying got cut off, so I want to share that. Probably one of the most important things I can communicate relative to the PPP program is that it is indeed a loan. I think that the vast majority of the interest in the forgiveness component of the loan has taken center stage, and I do think it's important that everyone do remember that it is a loan first. So you will have to meet those criteria to be able to gain forgiveness of that debt, and if you don't, it will be required to be paid back, and I think that's important to calculate that into your thought process. We will continue to be providing updates on our website. We have gone and created a COVID-19 tab on our homepage to be able to help navigate everyone to that information to help get you there as quickly as possible. We are providing information as we receive it that may be helpful in the application process as well, should you choose to apply for a PPP loan. Again, let us know if we can be of help. Happy to help with any questions you all may have. We're going to go through, I see there's been numerous questions posted throughout the webcast we've done. We will go back through those, review those, and then be getting with those individuals to provide answers to the questions you have just as soon as we can work through those, given the volume and the interest of this topic, particularly leading up to tomorrow's initial loan application deadline. So thank you all for joining, and have a good afternoon.